Hi, and welcome to the Herondale Boy Support Group. I'm Melanie,
I'm Ginny.
I'm Allie.
and we're here to help. Today, we will be discussing chapters 1 through 6 of Clockwork Prince.
Yeah.
But before we do that,
New book.
New
how's everybody
book!
doing?
Yeah.
Yes, new book.
I'm very excited for the new book. Love starting a new
Will
journey.
there be more gem in it? We'll see. We'll have to talk about that.
We'll have to
he's
talk
the one
about
on the
that.
cover.
Yep, exactly.
Before we get into the summary, how is everybody doing?
We're doing well. We're
Doing well.
excited actually, because we're about to go to London and Paris.
We
Woo!
Me
are.
and Allie. Me and Allie are about to go to London and
Yes.
Paris.
I'm gonna stay here.
Sorry,
Melanie.
It's okay.
Maybe next time.
Maybe next time.
Yeah, maybe sometime. I mean, we've been trying to go since 2020,
We
so
have.
Yeah.
it's been a long time coming, and we are excited. We're gonna hit some of the Shadowhunter sites in London for
The
sure.
bookworm sightseeing tour, if you will. And take some
Blackfriars
pictures.
Bridge.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yes.
So tune into our Instagram when we post some pictures from that trip and whatnot. But yeah, it's finally hit me that it's actually happening. And I'm like getting really excited now. Because for the longest time, we had rescheduled it so many times since 2020 because of all of the things. So like at some point, I just decided in my brain that this trip was never going to happen, and I was just going to be like looking forward to it forever, and that I wasn't going to go. But finally, it's like, we're going. 4 more wake ups, and then we go.
Yeah.
So
4 more.
Packing, and I think Allie's been packed mostly for like a week, and I've been packed for a few days.
Oh, I'm definitely that
the last
person.
minute things. Yeah.
exactly.
I'm like Allie in that I have to be packed. I'm like super excited to pack, and I pack way earlier than I need to.
I like making sure that I have everything. I don't like being in a position where I'm stressed out for
Yeah.
like that one final thing. So like I have very in-depth lists, and then I just kind of like pull things from the laundry as they're coming through, and then put them in a suitcase, and then like pull things as I'm done using them, put them in a suitcase.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we're going to go get our nails done today after the podcast, so we can be all nice and pretty for the trip.
Allie and Ginny get to go and traveling, and I'm just gonna be here.
But you did have an exciting time.
That's
You had
okay.
a birthday.
Yeah.
I did.
Happy belated birthday to the Melanie.
Happy birthday.
Thanks, guys. Another year older.
Whoa. This is when your body starts to ail you, so.
Great. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. We talk about that regularly, me and Allie, at our house, unfortunately.
You know, that doesn't surprise me with you two.
Health and medical things, and it's just like, we didn't expect to be talking about them at this young.
No one tells you how early your body just starts falling apart. Like, that your body changes again. Like, we thought we were done after puberty.
Exactly.
Love that for me.
Yeah. Have fun.
So, we're here to support you too.
The Herondale Boy Support Group.
Not
here
about
to
the
support
podcast.
your Herondale Boy problems and your aging.
Exactly.
Yep.
It's a double meaning.
And your aging bodies.
We need to update
Am I
that
Gem
tag.
now? Am I Gem now?
Oh no! Gem didn't even make it 26.
No. I'm aware, but like the whole body failing me thing.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Speaking of Gem.
But speaking of Gem.
Let's get into today's summary of chapters 1 through 6.
Whoa.
All right.
Okay.
Lay it on us.
Talk about.
So, 1, 2, 3. 3 knocks on the gate of the Crossbones Cemetery. Ghosts rise out of the ground and materialize in front of Will. He speaks with a ghost named Molly, asking her for 4-eye demon powder. However, he came searching for something else too. An anti-love potion. But it's not for a girl. It's for him. We pick up with Gem and Tessa. There's a council meeting happening at Westminster Abbey, but Gem and Tessa spend some time looking around before it begins. It's been 2 weeks since Mortmain's attack on the Institute and Nate's betrayal. While everyone else has been busy dealing with the aftermath, Gem has been there. Tessa and Gem have been spending a lot of time together and have become closer. Will shows up, and Gem points out that he's late to the council meeting. Tessa notes that Will looks tired, with red eyes and shadows beneath them. She reminds herself that Will hurt her, and he has made very clear what he thinks of her. When the meeting starts, Council Wayland requests that Tessa answer some questions, to which she agrees. Inquisitor Whitelaw hands Tessa a sword, the Mortal Sword. While the Mortal Sword can be used to make Shadowhunters tell the truth, as Tessa is a downworlder, this has no effect on her. The meeting begins like all the rest. with Charlotte recounting the night with the Enclave attacked Quincy's stronghold while Nate and Mortmain attacked the Institute. Tessa continues to explain she had no knowledge of Nate's plans nor where he is now. Benedict
poofs at the end of the last one.
He just poofs.
Yeah, he and Mortmain, they just... I remember.
Yeah. Benedict Lightwood, however, is not satisfied with this, believing that Charlotte should not be the head of the Institute for the London Enclave. He challenges her for the position. Council Wayland shuts the idea down and comes with the compromise instead. Charlotte and Henry will lead the investigation into Mortmain's location. If in 2 weeks they don't find anything, the challenge can go forward. It's also put forward that Sophie and Tessa begin training and learning to fight. They will be taught by Gabriel and his older brother, Gideon. Back at the Institute...
supposedly an asshole? Question mark? That's what we've been told.
What?
But
we will see.
To be seen.
Back at the Institute, it's all hands on deck. Everyone is helping to research anything that can help them find Mortmain. From family genealogy to mechanics to spells. Will and Jem come to the conclusion that it's not Mortmain's past that they need to know about, but where he learned magic and why he hates Shadowhunters. Suddenly, Jem has a realization. Mortmain wants revenge. The group decide to ask the Silent Brothers to look into reparations and see if Mortmain ever made a formal complaint against a Shadowhunter. Will soon heads over to Magnus's home. Magnus has summoned a demon, but Will is sure this isn't the one he's looking for. The correct demon cursed Will, and Will wants that curse removed. But when Magnus asks for more information about said curse, Will refuses. The next day, Sophie and Tessa's training begins. They are introduced to Gideon Lightwood as well as Bridget Daly and Cyril Tanner, the Institute's new servants. Gabriel assigns himself to instruct Tessa while Gideon teaches Sophie. Tessa surprisingly finds that Gabriel is a patient teacher, something she appreciates. At dinner, Charlotte returns from the reparations archive. She's found something. A request for recompense made by a man named Axel Hollingsworth Mortmain in 1825 for the death of his parents. Jem mentions that his parents were warlocks, and so Mortmain must have been adopted by them. This is where he learned about the dark arts and the shadow world. After Aloysius Starkweather at the York Institute refuses to give Charlotte any information, Jem, Will, and Tessa decide to go to the Institute themselves in hope of having better luck. Starkweather tells the trio what he remembers of John Shade and the situation that led to the reparations request. He also tells them the address Mortmain gave was a place called Ravenscar Manor. When they arrive at Ravenscar Manor, it's apparent that someone has been living there. Someone pulls up in a carriage, and when they step out, Will mutters one word. Cecily. He explains that Cecily is his younger sister, but before he can approach the house to find out more, Jem notices an automaton. After it attacks Tessa and the two boys destroy it, the automaton says it is a warning from the Magister. A warning to Will and all Nephilim. They must stop their investigation or Will's family will pay the price. As they ride the train back to London, much of the trip is silent. No one is quite sure what Will's sister was doing in York, but there is one thing they do know. Mortmain is playing a long game, and he wants them to know who holds the power.
Oof.
That was a good summary.
That was a good summary.
What happened? It was long.
A lot did happen.
There's a lot happened. A lot happened, and the drama in some of these sections.
The intrigue. Ooh.
Exactly.
What a way to start off a new book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Will desperately wants himself to fall out of love with Tessa.
Right?
And it makes my heart break.
It's so sad. Yeah. Just the way that the Herondales just like love with their whole soul and just like bleed themselves dry for others is just...
So, being the resident Shadowhunters TV show expert here, I wanted to bring something up.
Oh boy.
In the show, there is a point where I won't go too far into it for if we ever want to watch the show, you two. There is a point where Jace is given an anti-love potion by someone. And I thought about it, and I was like, I wonder if this is where the show got the idea from, kind of anti-love potion to make Chase fall out of love and no longer love Clary. Just something that I thought was an interesting little detail, little nod to possibly... Oh, Ginny?
Oh,
I think Ginny's frozen. Oh no! I just see Ginny like...
I mean, it was an excellent face.
It was. Could have been worse.
It could have been worse, you know?
But yeah. Oh! Ginny? Are you back?
I was wrong. Just can't live without...
Hello?
Hello?
Back.
Yay!
No, I Discord.
Welcome back.
I don't know why I just disappeared, but I'm back.
You went poof like Mortmain.
Oh no!
That Melody said just now, but I was like, no, Melody, where'd you go? And then
I'm here.
Your face was great though.
Your face was a good frame.
We got the
all the frozen
face.
face, so I'm glad that I had a
But
good
yeah,
frozen face.
like I said, just an interesting little detail that I thought maybe they took inspiration from Clockwork Prince.
So basically, in the TV show, Melody was telling us that Jace wanted a anti-love potion to stop himself from loving Clary.
Of course.
It's not exactly he wanted it, but he was given it.
Oh well.
Oh, okay.
Well then,
Fun detail.
just a fun
Yeah.
I
detail.
just, as the
Anti-love
expert, I'm like, I always see those little nods to the show, or the show making nods to the books now, I guess. I'm just like, ooh.
I'm pretty sure that somebody owns the film TV show rights to the Infernal Devices. I'm not sure who, but I do remember those being sold at some point. So,
So yeah, it was the whole situation, very sad, wanting to fall out of love. But then Molly is what's it called? A savage, and she's like,
a troll.
listen,
Yeah.
you don't need a potion to make a girl hate you.
like, listen, you can accomplish that very well on your own.
And it made me even more sad because, as we all know, this attitude is just a mask. It's a front. Like, it's not how he actually feels.
It is.
Right.
It's so.
And he is very capable of making her, on his own. Like we see a lot of that too.
Yeah.
How she feels that she knows it's a mask, but she knows she can't break it. Is kind of like she's like realizes that Will is pushing her away on purpose, but she can't do anything about it, type of thing. She
Watching
designed
Will through
herself
Tessa's
to,
eyes
he's not mine.
Is
it's
really,
really interesting.
Yeah.
Just like the hoops that she like drags herself through to like try and rationalize him as a good person and then rationalize him as a bad person, and like trying to make some sort of sense of the enigma that is Will Herondale. And
speaking of Tessa, I found her a lot less annoying in these trouble chapters.
Yeah, in this opening, I don't think I had a moment where I was like, Tessa. Like,
yeah.
I think for the most
Which
part,
is really interesting. But
yeah. Well, I mean, it's only been 6 chapters. I think that we are still in the first few chapters for thing. Again, like yeah, going in knowing that I'm going to do my best to give Tessa grace and see her as the child that she is, like I'm doing better, but yeah.
yes.
Yeah, it's true.
But it's still, I'm just like, oh, Tessa didn't do anything that was super.
It wasn't terrible.
And did you all read the forward one?
No.
I did not read the forward.
I didn't read the forward.
It's Cassie Clare explaining how that she, the concept of Tessa being a woman of her time and wanting her to be a heroine, but one who grows and learns and stuff like that, and the fact that basically like when it boils down to it, Cassie Clare was just like, I want Tessa to be a heroine who loves books because I love books and want her to explore.
I mean, definitely should have a character or protagonist that is flawed and has character growth, so.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm excited to see. And
I agree.
Yeah. So there's the experience of reading a trilogy as it's coming out, which is what I did with this one. Where even to the best of your ability, there are still elements that you forget. So I'm really excited for this experience of going through and reading them all back to back to back to back and getting to have these conversations with you guys, some of my best friends, about the series that we all love, and then get the chance to see how it's all connected. So I think that I might have a more holistic view and appreciation of Tessa's ultimate growth this time. So yeah, maybe she is progressively less annoying, and I was just blinded by my irrational Tessa.
Blinded by the light?
Yeah, and and I think that we've said before that when you're reading as like a teenager, sometimes you're really critical of the characters in books, and just like the female
you're critical of other
protagonist archetype
teenagers
that was in YA.
Yeah.
And you are critical of other teenagers. Like that's a thing. You're like, ugh.
Well, I would never do that, and therefore no one should ever do that.
Okay, Hallie.
Well, that's how teenagers are. That's how like children.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm just poking fun at the being like, I would never do that.
But yeah, and that's my thing is the difference is, I remember talking to Allie and Allie being like, oh, I hated Tessa so much, blah, blah, blah. And then I was, as an adult reading it I was an adult reading Infernal Devices for the first time, and I was like, I mean, she can be annoying, but also, I don't know if she's that bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And
So
it's funny because I
interesting.
think Ali mentioned recently that the first conversations you ever had with either of us was about
It
Shadowhunters,
was.
right?
Mhm.
It really was.
She mentioned that yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking about it because, like, I don't. That's not where Ginny and I became friends. Became friends over a different franchise. But yeah, the first time that we ever like communicated was over writing a Shadowhunters group story. That took place at the
Right.
Shadowhunters
Yeah.
Academy.
I
And
had
then
maybe
Melanie, the
like
first time that we were talking,
yeah.
we were kind of
I had
loosely
maybe
involved in the
communicated
same group.
right. Like I had maybe communicated with you like through streams or whatever, but not like I had an actual conversation.
Exactly. Until you mentioned buying like the pretty redesigns of the Shadowhunter books, and I was like, send pics. And I think that's our first message onto Discord.
Like this.
Exactly. And now here we are, getting the chance to like talk about this series that we all share.
You stuck with me thus far.
I have.
Yeah. It's a fun experience.
It is. Yeah. Books bring people together. There's fun
They
community
do.
surrounding books.
Which, speaking of books bringing people together,
I was about to say that's a good segue.
it is. If you want to go for it, Ginny, you can.
I was going to talk about we have plenty of Wessa moments, or like maybe Wessa moments, even in these first 6 chapters.
Oh, I
And
was going to talk
that
about
whole...
Jem and Tessa, but you go ahead.
Okay, well, I was going to talk about Will and Tessa talking about that book. They're like having their little book.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if it's skipping too far ahead. It's out of... It's not.
We never really follow
so
anyway.
It doesn't. Yeah,
we're really
so
bad about
like
chronological context.
Oh, yeah,
sorry, guys. We follow vibes.
But exactly. We're expecting that anyone listening to this has probably read the Shadowhunters already, or at least has an awareness of it. So,
or if not, they're just here for the vibes.
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna talk about these ships a little bit, and I was like, that moment where Will and Tessa are talking about like the books, and Will has read the book that she recommended, and then Tessa's like, "Oh, what did you think of it?" Or I think it's the opposite, right? Or who? Hold on, I wrote it in my notes. But
no, Will reads Tessa's favorite book.
Yes.
Okay, and
or has read.
About, like,
he might not have. Yeah, he had read it, and when he had said that
he had read it.
Stuff, yes.
Yeah.
And then they're kind of like, well, I wouldn't accept recommendations for you. They're kind of like they're kind of like soft bantering about it.
Yeah, they are. And
then
Will
recommends a particular book that he thinks that she would enjoy.
Yeah.
Which then
I wrote in my
arrives
notes
at her door.
I literally just wrote in my notes, books are their love language, and you cannot convince me otherwise.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, they are.
As evidenced by the poem that he writes on the first page.
Yeah.
Yeah, he writes a little cheesy poem on the first page, and it makes Tessa smile, and oh man, I wrote something about that specific poem in general too. I'm just trying to find I think it's pretty early on that this happens, actually.
Mm-hmm. I think it's in chapter 3.
Okay. So maybe it's not as early as I thought.
At least my notes say it's in chapter 3.
That makes sense.
I didn't write chapters on my notes. I write page numbers, but
the page numbers might be different if you're looking at a physical copy now.
Oh, that's true. That's true. I'm not looking at a physical copy now. I'm just looking at my notes here. But basically, yeah, the little note thing. And so I also brought up, so the thing is, my not my special interest topic necessarily, but maybe, is just like I'm looking a little bit closer at this love triangle, like the tiny details of it, I think, more than I was the first time reading this. And there's this moment where that book arrives at her door, right? And then Tessa opens the door and she hears Jem's music. Jem is playing the violin. But she picks up the book, goes inside anyways, is reading the book, thinking about this little note.
Yeah.
Regardless, and like Jem is just like in the background, kind of, and I'm like,
and I feel like that's how this love triangle exists.
Literally, what I was going to say about Jem and Tessa is that in the very opening of chapter 1, she friend zones him.
You're right, she does.
Oof.
I was just going to mention that. I was like, she friend zones him. She's like, "Oh, Jem, you're such a good friend," and he just kind of has this face. His face kind of drops a little bit.
That.
Yeah.
Poor Jem, man.
Poor Jem, man.
Just.
If we want to talk about the love triangle, I could talk about that a little more, or we could do something else for now.
We could keep I was talking about the love triangle and kind of how it continues to whatnot. Yeah, poor Jem. And another moment where this was really clear to me was when they So they are on the train. Will is on their way to Starkweather's, not Starkweather's house, it's the Institute in York, where Starkweather resides. But while they're on the train, Will is in fine form, as he does. And Will mentions, my favorite Will quote is, "I'm very patriotic. I have a dragon of Wales tattooed on my..." And Jem's like, "Well, aren't you in fine form, Will?"
Yeah.
I have in my notes, "Where is the tattoo, Will?"
Oh, I think you know where it is, Allie.
Tramp stamp.
It is definitely on his ass.
It's fine.
But
Yeah,
even more
it's
hilarious is a brief. I'm not gonna go far on this, but I bought this book on Nook a long time ago, and on Nook you can annotate books.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was reading, I noticed I had some portions annotated from like 2012 when I was first reading it, and my comment was like, "Tessa X Will Fic Inspo exclamation point," and I was like, nice.
You'll have
Nice.
to see it.
We do.
Nice.
But beyond that, specifically regarding the love triangle, when they're walking into the Institute, the ruse that they come up with is that Jem is Tessa's fiance who is set to ascend. So she's Jem's mundane fiance who is eventually going to drink from the mortal cup and become a shadow hunter herself. And that's sort of like the ruse. And so, as part of the ruse, Jem is holding her as they walk into the Institute, and all Tessa is thinking about is Will in that moment. I'm just...
What I was gonna say regarding the love triangle is, when Tessa has that nightmare when they're in the York Institute.
Ah, yes!
Oh,
I have
And-
written in my notes.
Oh my
for
god.
that.
Oh my god. Okay, Allie, no need to scream in my ears.
No! I scream.
So when, she has this nightmare, Will is the one who comes to comfort her and he wakes her up from this nightmare, and she confides in him about this nightmare. And I specifically wrote down that I wanted to look at this scene in regard to that quote from Aunt Harriet that I pulled out from the very beginning of the books.
Yes, the...
yes.
Yeah, I have it here. The quote from Aunt Harriet is, "When you find a man you wish to marry, Tessa, remember this. You will know what kind of man he is, not by the things he says, but by the things he does." So, up until this point, Will has sort of been distant and basically told Tessa that he could never want to be with her because she's a warlock and disgusting and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
He says some mean and hurtful things. But here in this moment, he's comforting her. He's telling her it's going to be okay, like, that it was just a nightmare, it's over. All those, the things that you want someone you care about and who you want to care about you to say to you. So again, it's more of he's doing these things because he does care about her regardless of what he says. He's saying those things to push her away because he doesn't want her to get wrapped up in his business, I guess.
Exactly. Everything Will says is directly in contradiction to the action that Will takes.
Yeah. And I'm going to bring that back up later for a different topic. But we're still in the triangle, and I wrote a note about that, like, nightmare scene too. I was just like, so I wrote down that they're like, he calms Tessa from the nightmare, and they're drawn to each other like magnets, is what I put, as how I put it. But she turns her head when he tries to kiss her, though. Remember?
Oh, yep.
Yeah, I said, he almost
lands
busts a
on the
kiss, my
cheek.
heart breaks.
Oh, yeah.
But,
She
still
turns
thinks
so it lands on her cheek. And
she still thinks that what Will said is what he actually feels.
Oh yeah,
So.
she's still very much hurt by him.
And she brings up, like, that night specifically. She finally is like, what about, and then he stands by the
He's like,
decisions
"I
that he made that
can't,"
night.
yeah.
And
Yeah, he's like, I can't say I didn't mean it.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's just like,
Which,
yep.
interestingly, he says he doesn't say that he does mean it. He says that he can't say that he didn't, which is an interesting distinction.
Yeah.
That is interesting, yeah.
Because he obviously didn't mean those things, but he can't
Right.
tell her that because of whatever reason Will has that
Right.
he can't love
And again,
Tessa
it's that
can't love him.
that contradiction of the things he's saying that he can't say that he didn't versus the things that he is doing, which is comforting her after this nightmare.
Exactly. Every time Will says Tess, I die a little inside. I'm just like, ugh.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
He kept saying Tess.
Aw.
He kept saying Tess, and I was just like,
these
oh
chapters.
my goodness. But then
Yeah.
earlier, when she was still mad at him earlier for something, I forget what it was. but I wrote in my notes.
Things, really.
Right, whatever the situation was, I don't
She
remember.
is consistently mad at him for these.
I don't remember what the
chapters.
situation was, but she had called him Mr. Herondale, and
She did. I wrote that down too.
And his face is
And
just
his
like
heart broke.
Oh, Tessa calls him
It's
Mr.
not-
Herondale, and I said,
It's
and
the
Will
next
is
section.
in all caps heartbroken.
Yep. Yeah,
Just
it's that book
Will,
scene of that
it's
when
all
they're
gonna
talking
be
about
okay.
their. Yeah. Which is funny because I wrote that down too. I said Mr. Herondale in quotes the T, and then I was like, but in that same page, like the thing is, Will enters the room that she's in, and then his voice is instantly promoted. So she recognizes him by voice, and there's just like I was like, the strong effect is still, it's still
Mhm.
like there, just like from speaking her name, like it's still, yeah, it's always there. And I'm like, oh.
Talking about other potential romances, I think we should start talking about the Lightwood brothers.
The Lightwood. This
Sure.
just in. Lightwood brothers don't actually suck that much.
They're also not unattractive either. I wrote down that Will is kind of making fun of him. It's like oh they're whatever, and then Jeb's like William, and then and then Tessa's like actually Gabriel and Gideon are kind of attractive or whatever, and I was
Yeah.
like,
They're very attractive.
Yeah.
And so
And-
nice. And
Tessa remembers that Will said compared to his brother, Gabriel looks like a sweetheart. But from what we've seen
Yeah.
of Gideon, he's just kind of annoyed that like their dad is making them do this training because their dad is looking for a power play. He doesn't seem, from what we've, read so far, like a terrible person.
he's kind
even
and
makes
gentle with Sophie.
And Gabriel is patient with Tessa.
Mm-hmm.
And he
And they're
even
competent. They're skilled.
Yeah. Gideon makes a joke that Sophie even laughs at. And he seems sort of surprised and grateful almost that somebody thought he was funny.
Yeah.
And we're starting to see the seeds being placed for Gideon and Sophie.
I ship it.
I wrote in my notes, you guys are going to hate me for this. I wrote in my notes that, dare I say, this could be the start of something new.
It's gonna be the start of
Something new.
Yep.
Anyway, I really just want to say that part.
Though it's interesting, that yeah, there's these hints for Sophie because she is currently pining over Jem.
She is still pining over
Mhm.
Jem. I have that in my notes. Yeah.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah. Which like
Because
somebody should be pining over Jem, okay?
He
it
deserves
should
it.
be.
Not Tessa.
Justice
So-
for Jem.
But in that scene where we see Sophie pining over Jem and sort of hiding in the shadows, she witnesses something that's not brought up again for the remaining of these chapters. Jessie, who has been feigning a headache,
That's right. Yeah.
comes out of her room wearing a traveling cloak, what appears to be men's boots, and a man's hat. Where is she going? Why with that clothing and why so mysterious?
Where
She's
did she
been
come
feigning a
from?
headache to get out of
Where
this
did she
training.
go?
Did she come?
I knew where I was going, and I specifically did not do it. Why is she hiding? Why is she feigning a headache? And where is she going with men's clothing?
Because Jessie would never.
It's very mysterious. We did not see a lot of Jessie in general.
Jessie,
these
who is
chapters.
so proud of her ladylike elegance, wearing men's clothing.
Mm-hmm.
Something to keep in mind.
Keep in the back of
Something,
your
yeah,
mind.
something to keep on that back burner is, and see what she is up to at some point here.
Yeah, we see little bits and pieces of her, but nothing, and we hear about her more than we actually see her.
Yeah. Yeah,
Jem
she's kind of
deserves to be
present for
wanted.
some of
Oh, sorry.
these reactions, but yeah, I agree. Ugh, Jem.
Jem deserves to be wanted. We see in all of his little like interactions with Tessa, like he's falling for her. He's smitten, and Tessa just cannot be asked. I'm just.
Tessa's just
Well,
like,
we
Jem's
have
sweet,
moments.
but he's
Yeah, we
my
have moments
friend.
where Tessa like is, there are moments too where we're getting little hints of maybe there's more for Tessa, but it's not as definitive as Will. Like there's a moment too, because I wrote down, obviously I wrote down where Tessa knows Will by the sound of his voice, but there's a moment where she knows Jem by his presence too, and I was like, all right, so we're starting to get some, and then there's this moment where she's like blushes to think about the fact there, because Jem says something about like or I think she she has like I don't know what the first problem is, but Jem's like, you can come by my room if you need help or whatever,
Oh
and
yeah,
she's
yeah.
like, to go to his room at night, even though she's
But
already
she
like
spends.
it's
She
midnight,
goes to
like
the attic
she's
and
already
kisses
been
Will.
there, and she's
Mhm.
yeah. So I was like, yeah.
Again,
Interesting,
speaking of Jem, I pulled out this quote that he said because they're talking about like finding a cure for everything, and Tessa's like, "You can't abandon hope." And Jem says, "I haven't abandoned hope. I just hope for different things than you do, Tessa Gray."
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's like he just wants his suffering to end.
I think
That's how I interpreted it.
my reading of Jem's motivation is I think that Jem wants to truly live. And I say this with like context of having read the whole series, but I do think that Jem's motivation, I think that Jem feels in a lot of ways that he is surviving.
Mm-hmm.
That he is, making it day to day, but he has nothing to truly live for. And he wants that feeling. He wants to live as a man, as the man that he is, in a way where he's not hindered by this illness, where he's not
And everybody's not
dependent upon
constant.
this drug, and everyone's not just looking at him like some patient. So I think that that's Jem's motivation, and I think that's why Jem falls for Tessa. I think that Tessa. I'm going to absolutely shit on Jessa, and I'm sorry, but I think that Jem. Yeah, hot take. I think that Jem sees Tessa as the shiny object and the newness, and something that has fallen, like a person who has fallen, a potential love interest that has fallen into his lap in a way where he would not have met anyone. Tessa has not seen him at his weakest. Tessa has not seen him do these things. To Tessa, he can be a man. And to no one in his life can he be that person.
Yeah. I guess that makes sense too.
So that's my hot take. So, this is
Um,
very spicy. Which is why the ending of Clockwork Princess annoys me, because that definitively means that Jem is not living, and it's just, anyway, we'll get there. We'll get there.
Way to go spoil things.
I did not say anything, imply anything, or say anything, but the ending annoys me.
I wanted to quickly, unless you have something else you want to bring up, Jenny, I have one.
I guess like my last note on this love triangle for now, because it always comes up, is that like there's this moment in one of the carriages where they're riding together. I think it's one of like their last carriage rides where they're riding all together, and just like the way that they're sitting is a triangle, I'm sure, because it's three people, and that's how
Totally
you have to sit.
Yeah, that's true.
but it's like Will is sitting across from Tessa, and there's like they make eye contact. They're which is awkward, so they're not like talking or anything. But Will's sitting across from her, and Jem is sitting next to her. And I just like think that in my brain, for some reason, the positioning like felt symbolic of Will is kind of on this equal plane as her, and they talk and they have this connection, and they there's eye contact, they're making connections. There's always like when you go to your friends with like to like a restaurant, if you're two people, most of the times, if unless you're like, you can go to a bar, you sit next to people, but like if you're going to like a restaurant where you plan to like chat and like have quality time with people, you sit across from them, so you can make eye contact, so you can talk with them, so they can see what your hands are doing, what you're doing, that sort of thing. And then like, but then like Jem is sitting next to her, and to me that's like that's like companionship, but it's like different,
Yeah.
like
So
it's
another
like
interesting way to think about this is Will is distant. And he is distant in that moment, too,
that's
because I
true.
think that this is post Cecily, is when
It
this is
is.
happening.
It is.
So he's got this distance, but there's an attempt to connect. And meanwhile, Jem is next to her, so his presence is steady, and his presence is there, but it's
Yes.
only ever just... Which, like,
There.
there's something to be said for constant,
Right.
persistent, steady love. But,
Yes.
like...
And
Yeah, some people want
that's
that,
what
and some people want
Jess meant.
Exactly.
the more dramatic whatever.
Exactly. It's
Right.
just hard when presented with them both.
Yeah.
To rationalize.
There's nothing
also,
wrong
like,
with Jem as a love interest. He's just
Exactly.
not the love interest for Tessa.
and also just like the genre YA, it's very
Dramatic.
we thrive on the
Her,
drama and the passion.
traumatic backstory, bad boy
Yeah.
with a heart of gold.
The Herondale boy, as it were.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas as an adult, like they're
Hell nah.
as an adult, like constant, consistent,
Listen, I have said to my
faithful
friends,
loves are really underrated.
yeah,
Like
I have said to my friends, I love Jace Herondale, but if I were to go to one of these guys in real life, it would be Simon Lewis.
right. Like you can have looking at like we could be like, oh, we love the Herondales, but like in real life, ugh,
Nah.
get out of
That's too
here. I
much.
don't want anything to do with that. Yeah.
Nope. Would not go
Um,
near that with a 10-foot pole.
moving on from the
Right.
love triangle for now. All these mentionings of servants and families who serve the Shadowhunters got me thinking, because we got introduced to the new servants of the London Institute, Bridget and Cyril.
We did.
Who, importantly to note, Cyril is Thomas's brother.
Yes.
All of these families, what happens to them when time to become more modern, if you will, and institutes don't need servants anymore? Do they get to ascend? Are their memories wiped or something? Are there still, people, employees, like chefs, or do those who reside at the institute, who are Shadowhunters, also double as staff?
I don't know. I think that will be an interesting
know.
thing to kind of revisit when we get into City of Bones, because that'll be the first time we see like a modern institute.
Yeah,
And have a
it
chance
just got
to
me
kinda
thinking
compare it
because
that
I don't
way.
remember it ever being mentioned or explained.
Yeah, I guess we'll.
Yeah, I
That's
don't
something
know.
to look closer at when we get there. I do think that there was. I feel like the New York Institute had some staff, but I can't recall. But that may have just been. I don't know.
I don't know.
Make
We'll
a
figure
note
it
of that. We'll revisit that.
Questions. Yeah.
But speaking of the staff, Bridget and her songs.
Oh my goodness.
Her songs. I was like, her songs remind me of
Yeah.
Girl Scout camp. That's where I was at. I don't know. I know that Ginny wasn't a Girl Scout. Melanie, I don't know if you were a Girl Scout. Were you a Girl
I
Scout?
was, but I vaguely remember any of it.
Vaguely remember any of it. Okay. Did you ever go to Girl Scout camp?
No.
Okay, well, at Girl Scout camp, they teach you all these songs, and they're all very terrible, and usually about, like, some kind of death. And, like, we have songs about a blue jay dying, we have songs about a dead buffalo, and they're all just, like, pretty morbid. Have some about Easter bunnies getting run over by a truck, and...
It's like Grandma got run over by a reindeer.
It's called Sunnyside, and I would be happy to, regale you with Sunnyside in
I think
podcast form because it's very obnoxious, and I
Yeah.
will not put
It is
anyone through that.
obnoxious.
Ginny has
I
been
have been
regaled with
regaled many a
Sunnyside
time.
several times.
Oh, I can
through all of
imagine.
these songs.
I like Sunnyside; it brings me joy. But yeah, so I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
oh yeah, it's
they're
morbid
terrible,
songs.
like-
It's just like Girl Scout camp.
Yeah, no, it's another, for me, Bridget is another one of those things where, like, I remember her now that, like, she's mentioned, and I remember her morbid song.
Mm-hmm. It's it's a fun little detail for a character who's largely in the background, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And she's got a very heavy accent.
Very
Just-
Irish.
Very.
Sophie is a little unsure about her. She's like, I don't know if we're gonna get along or maybe friends or anything. She's
Sophie's
kind of
like,
weird.
But
She's a
Agatha,
little weird.
we talked all the time, and I'm like, I'm sorry, Sophie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is
Sad.
heartbreaking.
Yeah, because especially to the servants, they were coworkers and friends. They related more probably to them than they did, the other like the Shadowhunters. And so,
Exactly.
yeah,
We
which even to the Shadowhunters, the servants are more than just servants. They have this moment where
Mhm.
they talk about, where one of them steps in. It's like, well, we can never just replace them. That's not.
Yeah.
And they have special
Yeah.
skills and unique talents, a la Black Butler, where they can come in and kick ass.
Yeah.
And take names.
We should probably move on and start talking about what happens at the York Institute.
Yeah, there's a lot.
A lot happens.
Because there's a lot that happens
York
there,
Institute.
and we gotta talk about it.
We do have to talk about it. We meet some new people too from that like council meeting, and and then hearing about like what they're gonna do with that information.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, sorry, I'm backtracking a little bit because in my brain, like the council meeting is what leads us there,
Mhm.
kind of.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, in my notes, I put Benedict, please.
Benedict, please. It's a valid note.
I wrote
for
that he was a
most of-
sexist, misogynistic asshole.
Benedict sucks. Gabriel and Gideon maybe don't suck, but Benedict sucks.
We cannot judge children by the actions of their parents.
Right. Benedict, please, yeah. And we see his grab for power type of thing, and he has support. Um, and yeah, so that's what pushes our main group
Quickly
to
on the
go
council meeting,
figure
I
out what's
do love that
happening.
Council Wayland was like, if you want to drop your support, I won't protest.
Right. Right. We do have, yeah, like Charlotte does have Wayland's support, which is nice, but
Nice. Yeah.
he
Anyway.
recognizes that they're in a position of, well, it is your job to find, there is some responsibility he's putting on her. It's like, well, it is your job to find that guy.
Yeah.
So
Charlotte is having a bad time at this council meeting. They're like going off.
she is.
Yeah.
She is having
Anyway,
a bad time. And
back to
she gets ragey.
she does, and it's kind of funny.
I was like, yeah.
She kicks a
I'm
wall.
kind of
I'm
sad
like,
we haven't gotten
valid.
any
She
more.
does.
We haven't gotten any more additions to the Henry fire counter.
We have not.
We did not. We did not get any Henry fire counter additions. But yeah, that pushes them to go, find this information about like reparations and stuff, which eventually kind of is what pushes them to then go visit the York Institute.
Exactly. Where he was possibly intending to send them away, but then he has a weakness for a pretty face, which is a little creepy and a little weird because he's like some really old guy and like
Yeah.
He's like,
Tessa's a child, sir.
Yeah, I was like, why does his attitude change so drastically when he looks at Tessa? And I was like, is it literally just that he likes a pretty face, like they said?
Yeah. Most likely. Given as he was intending to send him away.
At dinner or whatever, some meal that they're having, Starkweather comes and he has a box with him that I think is very important to mention the initials that are on that box. The initials on it are JTS,
Which match
AHM.
the pocket watch.
Right, JTS, AHM, which is most likely Axel Hollingsworth Mortmain, and AES, which is probably Starkweather. It's not explained. I could understand why the JTS and the AHM are on it. Why is AES on that box?
What is his mother's name?
I thought it might have been his mother's.
Oh, is it his mother? I
Might
honestly,
be
because
the
it was
mother.
otherwise just Starkweather, so I thought.
Yeah, that's an interesting coincidence, but I think it might be his mother because the last name was she.
It was something was it Anne? Or Anna?
I thought it started with an A, so I forgot about the
I
box,
could
and
be,
I thought it was her
it's
initials.
probably that, and I just was thinking Starkweather because.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm gonna look.
He
You
was
guys
present
continue.
for this happening all the way back because he's really old.
Yeah.
And so interesting about the reparation system is that when you have beef with Shadowhunters, you go to those Shadowhunters and expect them to solve your issues. And like that's
True. Yeah.
That's pretty corrupt. That's pretty not great. Like that's pretty yeah. It's like
Yeah.
His mother's name was Anne Shade, so it was probably that.
Okay.
Never mind.
Yeah, so it makes sense. Like, Axel Mortmain was rightly wronged. His parents were murdered. He went through the proper channels. And the proper channels were like, yeah, well, they're dirty downworlders, so you can go fuck yourself.
If his father really did have and was doing what he was accused of, that one is justified. In a sense. I hate using the word justified, but, like, I don't know how else to say it.
But we don't know.
They didn't have the Accords back then, either.
Right.
They didn't have the Accords
I'm saying,
so when they were, like, accused of things, they were like,
right. I'm saying if that was actually true.
Right. But
whereas,
yeah, right.
It's important to know that there's no evidence, really.
His mother supposedly didn't know anything about that, but she was killed anyway.
Exactly. Which would have been wrong. Obviously.
Right.
Yes, like, it's kind of a shitty system, regardless, because, like, it mentions in the notes how there was very few notes written down, and it was just kind of, like, brushed off as a formality. But, like, no real investigation was done. It's like, he's pissed for a reason.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, the best villains have compelling stories, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
And compelling motivations.
So, the way Starkweather talks about this, because he was there, he says he fell under suspicion when it discovered that the male worklock was in possession of the Book of the White. So, did he actually have the book, or were they just saying they thought he had the book? Because they say it's now back at the Institute.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah, it's not confirmed anyway. So
then they have the whole thing where Starkweather has this whole like gallery of spoils.
yeah,
And it's kind of disgusting.
yeah. Spoils unfortunately are very real. It's a very real addition to this world, a very event of the time. It's alluding to the Cabinet of Curiosities is the reference that's being made there, where like when people were sent to war, there was that feeling of entitlement to what they found.
I mean, I feel like it's still kind of a thing now in regard to like hunters with animals.
I think that's different. That's more of a trophy. That's an animal. A spoil is something that you are taking from like another person. So like a spoil would be a lot of stuff that's in museums. You know, things that were acquired via conquest, via because there's a difference when you're like taking the horns of an animal, because like assuming the animal was used for like other things, and also like humans and animals are fundamentally different in that way. But these spoils we're looking at are human equivalent, like they're downworlders, they're people, we know them to be sentient.
And Tessa starts panicking and freaking out because she, Starkweather doesn't know this, but she is a warlock, so like
absolutely.
She's disgusted by it, and Will and Jem are also not pleased with it, but they're trying to hold it together.
Yeah.
And Tessa basically faints. In this moment, I do not blame her.
Nope, I would also be very horrified. Again,
very
upon reread, some of the parts of these books are very morbid and like dreary and intense at times.
And then, as they learn about Ravenscar Manor and they go there, before we get to what happens there, I want to quickly bring up Will going to Magnus's about that demon and him being cursed, because it relates to this.
It was blue. This one is blue.
But the whole Will being cursed relates to what sort of happens at Ravenscar Manor. So we don't, as Magnus does not, we also do not learn more about what this curse is.
No.
But it's something to do with Will, and he says he's cursed and he wants it removed. And so Will
has opted not to tell Magnus the details, because Magnus asked too, he's like, can I know more about this? Because if I'm trying to help you,
I'm out here distinguishing between blue and periwinkle
and
with the color of
then
yours.
when they get to and then back in York, back to York and all that, when the trio gets to Ravenscar Manor, they see someone pull up in a carriage, and who is that person who comes out of that carriage? Cicely Herondale, Will's younger sister.
Which
Cicely, we love Cicely.
Says your sister is dead, and Will says
my sister is dead.
My sister is dead,
implying that he has either another sister or something,
or
had another sister.
Yes,
or is like dead to him.
Yeah.
And Will in this, the emotions Will has in the scene where he's like goes to run towards the manor, and Jem's like, no, stop, and just like Jem having to keep him grounded, keep pulling him back was a whole. It's
you really feel for Will in this scene, because my family must be in there, and if Mortmain's address was listed as this, they've got to be in trouble, like they don't know what they're getting themselves into, blah blah blah. And Jem has to pull him back, like you can't do this, because if you pull them into this, the Clave will not help them, because they are not Shadowhunters.
Right. And it's interesting because we heard in the last book, we heard the story of how Will refused to see his parents when he joined the Institute and stuff like that. But in this moment, when he's faced with the potential of his family being right there, there's it's an immediate, I need to see them. I need to, and which I think ties back into that whole judging a man by his actions thing. Which was a thing that I remembered in that moment. I was like, even though Will's like, oh, I don't want my family, blah 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 blah.
Yeah. But
when actually faced with the reality of his family being there,
and also, relating to Will not being able or shouldn't be able to, can't do anything regarding to his family, there's an automaton that has been following them.
Whole time. Yeah, it has been following.
And it attempts to attack Tessa, and Tessa's angel protects her again.
It does. It's a handy little trick, that.
It is.
But the automaton basically reveals after Jem and Will have sliced it to pieces, that it has been watching them because it is bringing a message from the Magister. That Mortmain knows that they're looking into him and family to sort of keep them in line.
Exactly. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out, knowing that, Will's family is present in a way. And
And he has a sister who...
He does have a sister.
We thought that all his family was basically dead, aside from his parents, I guess.
And now Tessa knows the name.
The name Cecily.
She thought it was like a lover, and she's like relieved that it's just his sister.
Yeah. She's like, what does that say about me? Well, I don't know.
And then she's like, I shouldn't care about that because of, what he said, but she does. And I have one last quote that I pulled that I wanted to discuss. In Tessa sort of thinking to herself about the dynamic between Will and Jem. Tessa realized that, though she had imagined them as brothers, she had always imagined Will as the older, the caretaker, and Jem the younger. The reality was far more complicated than that. I just think it's interesting to think about their dynamic. And for, all this time we've sort of seen Will being the one to take care of Jem when he's sick and things like that. But Jem is really the one who takes care of Will in another way, in that calms him down, prevents him from doing rash things, and
deep relationships are like that.
Exactly.
Like, there are no strict roles when you have that level of intimacy with another person. Like, you learn
it's
how
their parapetite,
Exactly. You learn how other people work, and like, in a strong, functional relationship or partnership, I'll use, you make up for what the other person lacks. And some people are stronger in some ways, and some people are stronger in others. And there are times where you're the person taking the lead and you're the person doing the comforting. And then there's some times where you're taking a step back and you're the person who needs comforting. And yeah, real relationships, especially that go that deep, are complicated in a lot of ways.
And I just thought it was interesting to think about in regards to their dynamic.
It is.
Which, and I look at that moment too of just like, so also, Will is losing it. He's understandably,
Rightfully so.
He's just, not with it anymore. And then, but when Jem starts coughing, that's the one thing that pulls his attention again.
Yeah.
He's disconnected. He's off in Will world now. But when Jem starts coughing and having a moment, Will comes back to it. And
Mom
Jem's
friend
like,
override.
Just some dust. Yeah.
Mood. I really. Thankfully, Jem was fine, and he just had some like dust or some frog in his throat. But it's the way that it snaps Will's attention.
Yeah.
Imagine being Jem in that moment, man. And just having the people you care most about in the world,
really
all of a sudden looking at you like you're broken.
Knowing that it's because they think you're having a moment or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. It's like...
Yeah. Also, Jem doesn't know a lot about his family either, as we can see by his saying, I thought your sister was dead thing. Like, we see that Jem has, despite being so close to Will, has not been privy to...
He's never pushed him to talk about it.
Yeah, little details.
But Will has also never given that information willingly to him.
Will has lots of secrets. He holds a lot close to his chest.
Got a secret. Yeah.
Secrets are no fun. You should tell everyone.
Wanted to point out about like that whole like scene, that interaction was that like, first of all, I wrote down Tessa let out the breath that she didn't know she had been holding. And I was like, there it is.
There it is.
There it is. But then there's like the quote that, Will's agony was so raw, agony so raw was not meant for her. And I was like, like, cause she's looking at him just like watching.
It's like a
all
voyeur.
this happening. I mean, yeah. And then she has this moment where in her mind she compares how angry Will was taking down the automaton to when Jessie did it.
Yeah.
Yes.
The first time that we see Jessie fight with her parasol.
Jessie, my girl, we did not get enough of her.
Yeah. The amount of like rage and like something deep seated in there is like matched. And I was like, oof.
It's a lot there.
There's a lot about Will we don't know yet.
There is.
So much about Will.
Whereas Jem is kind of an open book.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I also, while reading all these chapters, I had the fleeting thought that man, Jem talks a lot about church. And I was like, maybe he talks about church too much. And then I looked in a mirror, and I like quantified in my brain how often I talk about my animals. And I was
Are we talking about
nah,
church,
maybe Jem is a
Are we talking about like Church the cat or
church the cat.
like
Duh.
church? Okay. I'm just like, hello.
Yeah, and then I looked in the mirror. And
I
realized
remember
how
I
much
wrote down in my notes that
Cordy
like
and
church
Milo.
is the only one that Jem or that Jem is the only one that church likes, and I was like, oh, the implications.
Yeah.
But I guess we can end this off with, unless
I'm
there's
not
anything
done
else
yet.
anybody wants. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were done. Go ahead.
I'm not done.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So, yeah, I realized how much I talk about my animals. And I was like, maybe that's accurate. But also,
You do talk about your animals a lot.
I do, because they're lovely and they're the best part of my life, and I love them so
Cordiddle,
much. And just
the Milo.
yes,
And the other animals.
Cordiddle. And the rest of the menagerie, as it were.
If anybody doesn't know, I'm obsessed with their dogs.
Yes, Melanie is Cordy's #1 stan. She is not. Oh, actually, yeah, she's right there. Hi, Cordy.
We are blessed.
We are being blessed. She is in her bed.
Cordelia. The Cordiddle.
Move on. Go ahead. Sorry.
So one quote I want to talk about that wasn't in the actual text, as it were, but there are these quotes under every chapter from like various things. But the one for chapter 4 I really liked, and it's friendship is one mind and two bodies. And I kind of had that moment, and I was like, oh, it is. It's nice to have that.
You and Ginny.
It is. It's the shared brain cell thing.
Yeah.
We joke about.
We have this joke between the three of us that we all share one brain cell.
Exactly. So it's
Right.
the same thing. It's having somebody who knows you so well and who, shares the same thoughts and the same worldview. Like, that's a truly intimate thing. And I thought that was nice and pleasant. And it was just a thing that I was like, oh. Because I don't read the quotes super
I've been
in-depth.
trying
I don't either.
for the sake of this podcast, but I stopped at some point.
I don't think I've ever read them.
There's a couple that I noticed. Like, I think at the end of the last book, I tried to pay a little bit more attention. And what are they called, Melanie, as the publishing person? Is it an epigram or epigraph, or that's there's a name for that little quote.
No idea.
In the beginning of. Oh, okay.
Well, it has a word. We're not going to tell you what it is in this podcast. Please feel free
I could
to
look it up,
on
but
your
I
own.
don't know off the top of my head.
An epigraph in a book, I think, is what it's called. A short typically fictional quotation.
All that
saying or
education,
poem
I
as
clearly
extracted-
learned nothing.
Yeah, an extract in another's book to gently guide the reader into the story's world. Okay, it's an epigraph.
Okay,
Cool.
Ginny wins.
Yeah.
Gold star.
Ginny with the knowledge.
Brain cell.
Ginny has brain cell.
everyone.
She has it.
It has been shared with all of you.
And then one last thing from me is that Jem wants Tessa to keep the ring that she's been wearing, as she's been using to pose as his fiance.
I like the way it looks on you, he says. Jem.
Just stab in the heart there. Jem is not being
Shot through
that
the heart.
subtle.
And you're too late.
Tessa's over here. Will.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking.
Every time she's with Jem, even if they're not interrupted by Will, she's thinking about Will.
Uh-huh.
When she's with Will, it would be one thing if it'd be one thing if it was done as a way to, like, tie the triangle together and she was thinking about Jem every time she was with Will, but she's not.
But she's thinking about Will when she's with Will.
Yeah.
Right. It's
But
just all-consuming.
It is all-consuming.
Mhm.
Those Herondale boys, man, you just...
Yeah.
Can't
And I mean,
quit 'em.
first love, young love can be like that, it's
Listen,
all...
I wrote in my
all you
notes.
think about.
I was like, hi, yes, I'm falling in love with Will Herondale. Don't get me wrong, Jace is still my boy. But I'm falling in love with Will Herondale.
Will
all
is the
over
correct
again.
Herondale boy.
Shut up!
Just
Let me
saying.
see it. It's funny, we were talking a little bit about just the families in general, I think, recently, and Allie was talking about, like, what Shadowhunter families we would all be from, I think.
I was.
Yeah, because we were talking about those quizzes of which Shadowhunter character we are.
Yeah.
But I was like, Ginny has Blackthorn vibes. Forays, I cannot. I'm the only one here who's read the Dark Artifices, so I'm the only one who can
Yeah.
truly speak to
I don't
that.
know enough about them.
Yeah, but I think that there's like a wide variety within the Blackthorn family, but there's also like this, almost dark intensity that I think Ginny sometimes displays in a way that's very Blackthorn. I think that there's a lot of artists within Blackthorn, which I think speaks to, Ginny.
Mm-hmm.
I would describe Ginny as an occasionally floaty person, as far as like when we actually talk about in-depth ideas, and I think that fits the Blackthorn vibe. And
Yeah, it's fun.
and I said
Did
that
we
Melanie
say
has
what-
Lightwood vibes.
Yeah, that's right. I was the Lightwood, and I was like, I love Izzy, so I'll take it.
It's about and it's about like looking at the family as like a whole, like because there's
Mhm.
different characters obviously in every
Obviously.
Right.
family, and they're all
Alec and
distinct and
Isabel and Max even are
different.
very different people than Gabriel and Gideon. If we're
Mhm.
going
Yeah,
for that.
yeah, exactly. But Lightwoods have like a very strong sense, I feel like, of justice. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, and I feel like they're generally like, I mean, besides Benedict, like they're generally like good alignment like characters. A lot of the time, they have a strong sense of justice, and they'll like fight for good all the time. And
Exactly.
yeah,
They're quick to action, and are very
Yeah, they are.
steadfast in what they believe, and very, like, a little stubborn in that way.
That I am.
yeah, they're a
So
bit
we're like,
stubborn,
Melanie
but
is Lightwood
so are
vibes.
Herondales.
So are Herondales.
So, yeah.
Listen,
And it'd be funny, and it's, and
As
we
I
talked
was-
a little bit because, go ahead.
no, I forget if this was last week on the podcast or just in our group conversations of text. I went down a rabbit hole of the Lightwood family tree.
Mhm.
Because I was thinking about how couples play out in this series. And so I was thinking about which branch of, I guess, Herondale's Jace comes from.
Mhm.
So I went down like a Lightwood family tree rabbit hole and seeing which branch of the Herondales Jace came from. And I was just like, technically, Jace, Alec, and Izzy are distantly related.
They are technically very distant cousins.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
But we don't know that yet. That's
That
a
leaves
spoiler,
us-
Melanie.
Oh,
I didn't say anything about who is with who.
You
I
said
didn't say anything.
that they're distantly related, and therefore a Herondale ends up with a Lightwood.
Somewhere.
I mean,
Somewhere.
It's fine. Don't worry about it.
it could be something
These
that
books have
happens.
been out for like 10 years. Get on it, people.
They have
Leave
been
me
out. Yeah,
alone.
they have been out
You
forever,
were the
so-
one who said something about Jem and his fate at the end.
Anyways, and well, that leads us to the bickering that happens between Lightwoods and Herondales all the time. Is a good kind of.
Does that make Allie the Herondale family?
Herondale house, as it were.
This is
Yeah.
Game of
Well, when
Thrones
she was
now.
talking about when she was talking about like having like Blackthorn vibes, I was like, "Are you saying you're Herondale?" She's like, "I didn't say it. You said it." I was like, "Well, I mean, if she's not the same as Melody, but the thing is, Herondales and Lightwoods are the same brand of
They're two sides of the exact
stubborn
same coin.
and
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's why Jenny
Yeah.
is the mediator between us.
But yeah,
Ginny loves us.
same brand of bullshit.
Jenny loves us.
She
Mhm.
does.
But yeah, and Herondales are complex and intense people. Also stubborn. They
Oh, is that Milo?
care a lot about the people that they love, like intensely. And
Sir, please.
so, please.
Anyway.
Yeah. But good, fun thoughts, because that's the thing is we all took these little quizzes too. So we were like, "Oh, which Shadowhunters are you?" And then we were all like, "What?"
And then we're all just like,
And
nah,
then-
this does not work for me.
No, yeah.
I miss Quizilla, so I can make my own.
Just make your own BuzzFeed quiz.
That's true. You could make BuzzFeed quiz, but that would require effort, you know?
Not about that life.
Nah.
Nah.
Anyway. Anybody
Anyway.
else have anything they wanted to talk about before we wrap up?
Let me look at my notes real quick. I think we got a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I did make a note just offhand that Will makes Tessa's tea before they have to go
Mm-hmm.
look for the manor, right?
Yes.
And he makes
yes.
it too sweet, but she drinks it anyways because
Because she loves him.
yeah, because she loves him. Exactly. But yeah, I was like, because she was just like, well, he never makes kind gestures, so and I
I
was like,
guess I will reward the good behavior.
right. Yeah.
It's the things he says versus the things he does again.
Tis. I'm so glad we caught that early on because it has continued to be relevant.
I'm glad I
My
pointed
only
it
other
out.
note was that Jem does a lot of his practicing at night. And as a musician, I can tell you that people don't like it when you practice at night. And maybe that's a little inconsiderate. And maybe he should think about others when he's choosing his practice.
I mean, the institute's pretty empty, but their rooms are all within close proximity of each other.
Exactly. He could go somewhere else if he had to practice at night.
Or use a silencing room.
Go serenade church.
Isn't there like a silencing room, a soundproof room?
Probably.
That sounds like some shit that would exist in
That
this
sounds
massive
like
place.
something that would be in a Shadowhunter Academy or a Shadowhunter Institute. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's all the. Oh, I also wrote down the quote of Jessamine being like, "Charlotte, Will's being vexing," and Jem like, "And the sun has come up in the east." Like,
yeah.
And then
nice.
Jem says something that is like out of
Counter
character or
to
something
it,
like that, and Will's like, sun rises in the west.
Yeah. Good. The banter is always good. We love it. We love it.
I love how there's always a group of three. I mean, I assume there's always a group of three. I guess I only know the two
triangles
of, not triangles. The trio gang in Infernal Devices and Mortal Instruments. Will, Jem and Jesse versus Izzy, Alec, and Jace.
I don't know, man. There are so many characters in the fucking Dark Artifice, or not the Dark Artifice. The Dark Artifice too, but also in The Last Hours. There's so many.
There's so many characters. Yeah. There's and they're all like very, like a lot of them are, I would consider them main. So like, yes, you could pick out a trio, but it's not quite. Yeah.
We have like a main cast of 8.
Yeah.
Cassie Clare, stop doing that.
Ready to keep track of everybody.
I think there are like 12 Blackthorn siblings. Like it's
oh my god.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. I remember that being mentioned.
Who got real busy? I don't know. I'll have to see, I guess.
And Mommy and Daddy Blackthorn love each other very much.
Well, it wasn't Tatiana. We know that.
It was
Nobody
not
loves her
Tatiana.
that much.
Oh, Ginny, you know who it is.
Oh, do I know who it is?
Well, you've read The Lost Hours, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, fair enough. Good for them.
Good for them.
Good for them. We weren't sure what was going to happen.
I guess I'll find out.
You will next year. We officially have that reading schedule.
Next year, yeah. Yeah, it's fine. You have to
I gotta buy the book. No, I have. Do I have all three? I already have all three. Duh.
Nice.
Cool.
But anyway, I think that's it for this week.
I think so too. We'll be back in 2 weeks, of course.
Post London and Paris for Ginny and I.
I can't wait to see all the pictures.
Yes. And we'll be talking about my favorite chapter in this book. Because we'll be talking about 7 through 12. And my favorite chapter is in that. So, very excited. And yeah, we will catch all of y'all then.
See y'all next time.
See you then. Bye.
See you then.
Bye.
Bye.